Welcome to the Real Life Buyer podcast. In this podcast, you will hear interviews with business owners, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, authors, and technical specialists in their field. These professionals will hasten your development, accelerate your career, and broaden your business know-how. Now, introducing your host, Dave Barr, interviewing with a purchasing twist.
Hello and welcome to the Real Life Buyer. In this episode, I have the delight of talking to Erin Marcus. Erin is passionate about helping entrepreneurs and small business owners achieve financial and emotional freedom. Her outstanding skills include public speaking, strategic planning, branding, business consulting, marketing, strategy, and running lead generation masterclasses. On top of all this, she somehow finds time to host the Ready Yet podcast and has authored a book by the same name. Today, I want to tap into her knowledge and expertise to energize and inspire small to medium-sized business owners to challenge themselves and achieve a greater level of success. So without further ado, I welcome Erin onto the podcast. Hi, Erin.
Hello. I sound so fancy when you say all that.
Well, you are an expert. You were just chatting and you are very prolific on LinkedIn. You regularly do, obviously, lives, should we say, and you're on live today on my phone. Suddenly your name popped up.
Oh, yeah, I did. I was on a bit of a tear this morning about tracking numbers and what to do with it and all of the things. Yeah.
Fabulous. So, obviously people can check you out, but we'll talk about where people can find you shortly. But you've obviously got your own unique journey. Yeah, I believe you started off in journalism. You had 11 years, I think I would describe it as a business development role in one company in insurance. Then you spent another 6 years with the wonderful title of president. I do love that title. I wish I had that title.
It's your business. You can do whatever you want.
It's wonderful, isn't it?
King Mouse.
Okay. And you're now the founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. And that's been going since around about June 2016. Yes. So very well established. Now, can you share with us kind of your journey? What sort of things have happened in your life? You've had quite a range of experiences. What are some of the standout moments that have made Erin Marcus become the person we're talking to today?
The origin story, if you want to go way back, I think one of the things where it started was that I went to public school in Chicago in the 70s and 80s with people from 22 different countries. It was huge immigration waves then. Nobody spoke English and nobody had any money. So there wasn't, if you've watched any of the Hollywood films from the 80s and all those teenage angst and keeping up with the Joneses, that was the opposite of my high school experience, right? Everyone was just trying to survive, but we were kids. So we were also just trying to get along with each other and have a good time. And one of the things it taught me was how the people are just people, right? People are just people, and how to talk to anybody, regardless of language, regardless of background, regardless of experience, just to lead with curiosity and be interested in people, because it was amazing. Like, it wasn't just the kids I was in school with, it was their grandmas at home that we were interacting with. And then you fast forward, I somehow got over my juvenile delinquency ways and found myself in college getting that journalism degree. And I was writing for three different daily papers at the time. And when you're a student, they give you access to all sorts of things. So I was interviewing people way above my pay grade, like way state level, national level politicians. I was covering murder trials. Like, I would have never gotten an actual job with access like this. And once again, I learned people are just people, and how to communicate with anybody, and how to ask questions, and how to listen for what they're saying, but also hear what they're not saying, and putting that all together. And that curiosity and interest and complete lack of attention span, combined with what I've since learned is one of my top 3 strength finders of learner, right? I just love learning new things. So if you combine loving learning and no attention span, you get a lot of activity is what you really end up with. And what I finally figured out is I love the puzzle of business. I love the puzzle of business. And the advice that I give people is find that intersection of what you do really, really, really well and what other people need. right? Where is that intersection in your services between the thing other people need and the thing that you do really, really well? In my business where I was president, because that was exciting, that's what happened. It was a business, it was a franchise actually, and it was working with families with aging parents, but I got my franchise, my office, to the top 10 out of 200 offices in about 18 months because I love the puzzle of business. Not because I was so amazing at taking care of aging parents. Trust me, I was not the most amazing, right? I had team members who were much better at doing the thing than I was. I just love the puzzle of business. And so the franchisor had me training new franchises and speaking at their events. And finally, I just think if you're paying attention and if you listen as you get older and as you get more experience, it's not so much about discovering what you're good at as it is about letting go of everything else. Let go of the noise, let go of the chaos, let go of what you should be doing, let go of what everybody else thinks you should be doing. Because I absolutely promise you, I left a C-suite, multiple six-figure income, expense account, the whole 9 yards in corporate to start a business working with families with aging parents, which means we were like working in their basements, going through their stuff. And that is not a conversation you want to have with your mother, right? Like,
oh dear.
But it all comes together. And this is, so I'm so excited about doing what it is that I am doing now. I get to just hone in on the thing that I know how to do.
For a young person in the presence of people that, as you said, you saw them as at a different level, perhaps to you were. And I guess you're pretty intimidated in some ways by the people in front of you. But by having the experience of sharing the same time, asking those questions, hearing their answers, I guess that had quite a profound impact to you as a young person, where your friends, other colleagues perhaps weren't getting the experience that you were getting at the time.
Absolutely. I absolutely know that my experience as a reporter during college was monumentally more beneficial to me than any class that I went to. Right. I mean, the classes were interesting. They were certainly better than high school. I did better in them than I did in high school, but it was nothing. There were some that stand out, but none of them compare to being able to sit down with a senator and have him pay attention to you like you mattered.
Wow. Really powerful stuff. If you reflect back now, would you say there's any one particular person, I know it's a really tough question, that really impacted you in a way that you never really expected to happen?
Oh, yeah. I was lucky twice with mentors in corporate. So one of my more corporate level positions was at a international commercial real estate company. And it wasn't handed to me. I mean, I think that's a big piece of information. Opportunities don't get handed to you if you don't behave in a way that shows you deserve them. And so I had massive work ethic. I asked a ton of questions. I got way involved. And my first mentor, as opposed to a boss, right? My first mentor was in that company. And I was only there for a few years. I didn't like the business in general, but they were two women. They were a team. They were the #1 female team of commercial real estate in the Chicagoland area, which is crazy huge. Like you can't even imagine. There's a lot of business. This is 5 counties. It's something like 5 million people. And I ended up getting to join their team. And what I learned from them was, because it was the 90s, how to maneuver in a male-dominated industry without having a chip on your shoulder, without doing anything inappropriate. Like, how could you be authentically you and still maneuver in that world through communication, right, in a way that benefits you? That led to my next job, where that mentor, the owner of that business, like, took me to meetings that were so above my pay grade. And we would go to dinner afterwards, or we'd go to lunch afterwards, and I'd have my notebook and I had written down everything that I didn't know. What did that mean? What did that mean? What did that mean? What did that mean? What was that acronym? Right? Like, just with all the patience in the world, gave me a business education that, once again, now that company paid for my MBA. I was able to use our company as real life case studies projects for that MBA, but he took it a step further. And the story that sums it all up is, so I was there for 12 years. I was a senior vice president by the time I left. And when I told him I wanted to leave, first, I had spent about 3 hours trying to bribe one of my partners to tell him for me. And Pat wouldn't do that I was willing to give him more and more money to go have that conversation on my behalf. And so I walk into the office and I'm like, there's an opportunity that I've come across, and I think I really want to do it. He stopped everything. He called the other founder. He called the corporate lawyer. He called the executive vice president. And we all went into the conference room together, where he asked me 3 hours, asking me questions, going through paperwork. What are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? How much money do you have for this? What do they give you for that? And for 3 hours, went through everything, not just the paperwork, but me. And he goes, all right, you're ready. You can go do this.
Wow. That's very generous, really, isn't it?
It's unheard of. And I think it's what I emulate, right? If I could even be a portion of that. So I hire people and I try to help them create their entrepreneurial dream job within my brand. I try to treat my team members, my vendors, whoever I use, in a way as if they were my clients, right? What is that saying? When the waters rise, all boats go up. I mean,
yeah.
It's just a happier way of being too.
If I reflect in my head now, I think of the analogy that people to learn a language, the best way to do that is not sit in a classroom. It's not to be told, it's not listen to tapes. It's being immersed in the culture. So if you want to learn French, go to France. You'll be there for a long period of time. And, if you don't learn it very quickly, you're going to go hungry, let's say.
Basically, yes.
In your case, you immersed yourself, or people immersed you as well, into the business world, into the corporate world.
Yes.
And you were exposed to things, that most people rarely get the chance to be involved in. And that gave you a quite a unique vision, interpretation of what people do, why they do the things they do, what they say the things they do. Said you were writing down in a frenzy, trying to learn from all this. But that gave you the opportunity to learn it in a very different way to most people have that chance. So that really formed you, should we say, at that time.
Yeah. I mean, when you combine all these things, I always felt like my life was very segmented. I went to grammar school. I went to high school with nobody from my grammar school. I went to college with nobody from my high school, just by happenstance, not with any design. And I always felt my life was very fragmented and segmented until I now look back and see how this all, growing up with so many people who were so different from me, and then having a journalism degree where I was literally trained to communicate with intent, trained to ask questions, and then have another opportunity to be with people that, I grew up in Chicago. My mother was a beautician. My dad was a cop. I was a delinquent, right? Like I chose a different path, right? So when would I have ever? But I think this is where people harm themselves so much, is they wait. They wait for it to be handed to them. They wait to be asked. I've always been, maybe it was a big mouth type of situation where I would just interrupt and said, what are you talking about? The thing that has served me, I don't know where it comes from, but the thing that has served me so well is I do not get upset or think poorly of myself if I don't know something. I just ask. I think a lot of people are scared to admit if they don't know something. Absolutely. I will be the first one to tell you I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Was that fear of exposing yourself to people that you are intimidated by in most circumstances yourself? You've got over that already.
Somewhere along the way, that just, right. When you're talking to people from all over the world and well before Google Translate, asking them what is just, that's going to be regularly happening.
Yeah. But at least that way, asking those questions, you really get to understand the answers. As you say, most people, if they're intimidated, will either not say anything at all, or wait for other people they hope will ask the question that you want to ask, or you'll very meekly try and get some sort of answer out of that individual.
And the mistake we make when we do that is the other person isn't thinking, they're thinking about themselves also. they're not thinking, it's kind of like going to the gym and not doing the exercise because you don't want people to see you doing a bad job. They don't care. They're not watching you. They've got their own problems. They've got their own thoughts. It's the same thing. All the people that were worried about seeing us they've got their own thoughts. They're not even thinking. 99% of the time, they're not even thinking about you. I say that about us here in the Midwest, in the US and the Midwest. We're all very nice, right? We're very, very, very nice here. God forbid we not be nice. And that becomes a problem with sales. Because while you're being nice, not wanting to bother me, I'm being nice, not wanting to be pushy with you. And so everyone's very nice, but nothing gets done, right? So we're all very nice.
All right. Let's ask you about networking. We've gone through a number of changes where we had face-to-face was common, standard, everybody, would go and meet each other. Then we had this awful pandemic where everybody couldn't meet each other. You'd be online doing phone calls, video calls, whatever. And now we appear to be transitioning back into more face-to-face, a little bit of a hybrid right at the moment. Now, what would you say with your experience would be the most effective means of networking when we're talking about people who may be intimidated, perhaps a small business owner talking to other business owners? What would you say works best? How do you cultivate those really good relationships that end up with referrals and businessing and everything else, not standing by the sidelines and watching what other people are doing and being that last person with a coffee in your hand?
Right. Well, the good news about networking is you can assume everyone's there for the same reason. They're there because they want to meet people. So it's not like going to a bar and you see somebody sitting by themselves with a drink. Maybe that person just wants to be by themselves. You don't know when you approach that person anything about them. You can assume if they walked in the door at the networking event, they do want to meet somebody. And my big advice on all levels of business is around intention. Have an intention. Don't do random acts of marketing. Don't just show up and see what happens. Do things with intention. So if you're a nervous person, find someone else who's nervous. I promise you there'll be one, right? Find someone else who's nervous and go be nervous together. Or you can do the opposite. Find someone like me and I'll just take care of it for you, right? I've done that plenty of times where I've just, no problem. You and I met somehow. You're a little nervous here. I'll take care of it for you, right? No big deal. The thing I like about Zoom is we're all the same size box. So for me, it's not hard for me to walk into a room with people. I've been talking to strangers my entire life, right? This is not a thing. But I do understand that, especially if I'm all excited about something, that I can be a little intimidating. I can be the line I heard that I love is the fact that I'm too much in real life makes me just enough for the internet, right? So online, you're not competing with someone who happens to have high energy. You're not competing with that person. So if you find yourself more intimidated, the beauty of post-pandemic is how many options we have. You have in person, you have virtual. There is zero shortage of ways to meet people. Pick the one that works for you. One of the mistakes I watch businesses make over and over and over again, small businesses, is they believe in someone else's marketing, which isn't a bad thing. It just means the marketing worked, did what it's supposed to do. And they buy into an outcome from a tactic instead of a strategy. And that tactic does not take into account your unique strengths, your unique business, your unique goals, and the things you hate doing. Because if you hate doing the thing, you're not going to do a good job at it. You're just not. So there's a million other ways to do things. If you don't want to watch, or if you live somewhere or have moved somewhere where they don't have good in-person networking, great. It's online. I don't do a lot of in-person networking. And interestingly enough, when I do, I usually have to go out of state for it. There's only one place here in Chicago and then I go to very cultivated experiences. Find the intention.
So for new business owners, and there seems to be quite a resurgence in people starting a business at the moment. I've seen on a number of calls I've had, networking meetings I've been to, quite a plentiful supply of new people trying to get into this. and they're all trying to find their way. They're all trying, as you say, network and ask the right questions and do the right things. So if you were going to start over yourself and you didn't have some of the experiences you have, but you wanted to make an impact, how would you go about that? What key things would you suggest to a new business owner, somebody starting out? How could they make an impact when everybody is bombarded with social media and everything else going on? How can they stand out that little bit more?
Two things. Number one, everything has to be reverse engineered. Don't start at step one. It's random acts of marketing, messages that aren't dialed in. What happens is people practice on their prospects because they haven't done the work before they go to work. They know they have a business, so they're supposed to go out there and meet people. Okay, I'm supposed to go networking, right? What does that even mean? What am I trying to accomplish? What's the outcome that my business provides? What's the problem that I solve? Nobody buys a process. So getting my ducks in a row, getting your ducks in a row before you even go to your first event will help you immensely. Because the truth is, you could be the best photographer in the world, but if you can't talk about it confidently, people are going to think you're bad at photography. It's not fair, but it is true. So reverse engineer. What kind of business are you trying to create? What kind of clients are you trying to work with? What is the problem that you solve? What is the pain that they feel and the problem that you solve? Like, write it all out. Write it all out. It's going to iterate. Don't get married to it. It's going to iterate. So, but do that work before you walk out the door. So, because number one, that is going to shorten your learning curve. You're going to get clients much faster. So you'll get your ball rolling faster. The second thing is be a thought leader, not a vendor. Whatever you can grab onto that you're confident in. It doesn't have to be everything, right? This is a snowball effect. Grab something you're confident in and be very emphatic. There's no money in the middle. There's no wishy-washy. I love asking people, what are they against? Don't just tell me what you're for, tell me what you're against. Personally, I focus on business strategy. No, and my cute little saying is, no one size fits all, soon to be obsolete Insta tactics. They don't care if I disagree with them. I say, the tactics are great, but your business might not be ready for them. So I'm not being a jerk about it. You can disagree with something without being a jerk about it, right? So the beauty of AI is how much easier it is going to be to stand out. It's so going to be, everyone already sounds the same to me. I use AI. We use it to be efficient. We use it to get things done faster. But the reason I go live every week, the reason I do this is you can't dial this in. Video, you don't have to do live. I didn't start out doing live, let me tell you. It took me a hot minute before I was willing to just put it. I think the pandemic made us all better on video because we're just used to that. We're just used to being recorded at this point in our life, right? So video hacks, know, like, and trust. Because you get my energy, you hear how I'm if I'm your person by now or not, or you have an inkling. Do you want to talk to me more, or do you like, this woman is nuts, I do not want to talk to her, right? You know this, but you know who I am in a way that written word right now is too easily not faked, but dialed in, or utilize ChatGPT. I love using it for ideas. The way we do our content is I do my live show that gets turned into articles and posts and all the things. So it still sounds like me. And then we go to ChatGPT and we ask it, what are the other things that a small business owner would be concerned about around XYZ? And it gives me like 15 ideas. And then I pick 2 or 3 of them and then I go deep on those. So I'm helping, right? It's getting me past writer's block, but you have to understand how it works and utilize it. Like efficiency, I'm a big fan, but you're going to stand out by being authentic.
Yeah, be yourself. Exactly. Now, we talked about networking, and quite often one of the things that you get as a result of networking is collaboration. Now, what's your thoughts on collaboration? What do you see as the great power of collaboration? Have you got any examples where something occurred where you've met somebody, you've ended up collaborating with them, and suddenly an opportunity has arisen that you never expected. Can you share some of those examples?
Yes. So first, a warning. Be careful who you let hitch their wagon to your horse. If you're a go-getter, if you're high energy, if you're producing results, people get excited. I don't believe most people are malicious or manipulative on purpose. I really don't. But people will approach a high energy, high drive success wanting to be a part of it, right? Not in any way, not in any negative way, but as you can imagine, people have people don't keep up with me. Is what it is. People don't keep up with me. So in my early years, those collaborations didn't work because it's just like a group project at school. One person does all the work. It wasn't me, by the way. Things have changed. Everyone wants the good grade, right? So be careful in the beginning who you allow, if you're the horse, who you allow to hitch your wagon to. That being said, don't ask someone to marry you before you bought them a drink. There's a relationship that has to build. I have someone right now, in fact, he just texted me, just popped in, that I did 5 podcasts where they were on my podcast and I was on theirs. 5 different people who all went, oh my God, you got to meet this guy. You got to meet this guy. You got to meet this guy. We scheduled a call. He canceled it because he was on an airplane. We rescheduled a call. His power went out. I gave up. I'm like, I don't know why everybody likes this guy. He doesn't show up. And I just really didn't worry about it. We finally met. We were supposed to talk for 30 minutes. We talked for 3 hours. We've done 2 events together. We have another one planned this summer. It has become very obvious that if someone is successful with me, he's what they need next. I've sent him hundreds of thousands of dollars in business. He has brought me into rooms where I've closed and I'm on my way to closing within a week, probably another $50,000 worth of business. We just get along. We're just so on the same page with a little bit of overlap, enough to understand each other, but we know how to position. If you are going to collaborate with people, you have to understand how to position them, which means if you want to get referrals, you have to show people how to position you. I get a ton of my business from referrals. I give away probably more. And when I had my business with families with aging parents, I gave away $6 million in referrals for real estate, for houses. Didn't have a license, never made a dime. People were like, oh, you should get your license so they can pay you. That wasn't my business. That wasn't the business I was in. If you want collaborations to work for you, if you want referrals to work for you, give before you get. Give before you get. Everyone who's on my podcast, I find them 2 more podcasts to be on. Give before you, it's not linear. There's a big business bucket in the universe, and you give to the business bucket, and the business bucket gives back to you. And I always thought, wouldn't it be great to become known as the person who does that? It's just fun. I refuse to do the bang my head against the wall way of doing business. And entrepreneurship and small business ownership can feel so lonely when I'm sitting in my office and the dog has no good ideas today and I've got to figure something out. Collaborations and referrals and the bonus I never saw coming owning my own business were the relationships I made networking.
Yeah.
Because corporate is inherently competitive. There's 100 people, 2 get promoted, 1 get promoted. It's just inherently competitive in a way that small business isn't. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Now, as you mentioned about big business, and one of the things I see big business being able to do, because they have the resources to do it, is to become organized. They have documented procedures, they have processes, they have plans, they set tasks, they set objectives, and that's quite normal. But when you're talking about a small business owner with limited resources, that can be quite daunting. Now, would you say it's still critical for small business to recognize the power of those things, even though they may be very difficult to attain and develop?
I don't think they're difficult to attain. I think we don't like doing them. I put myself at the head of that list. Most small business owners, most entrepreneurs are at least somewhat ADHD. We also like to create things. I can't follow a process to save my life. I have zero interest in it. I have zero interest in it. But if I want to scale a business, everything we do has to be process. ClickUp is a project management software tool, and it's free. So I don't want to hear about, right? None of this, like Google Docs is free. If, okay, I had to pay for someone to track on to actually implement them because I have no interest in doing it, right? Again, a pitfall for small business owners is thinking they have to do all the things. If I would have gone into the finance department in corporate and tried to log into the computer and start paying the bills, I would have been chased out with, pitchforks and torches. Why would I do that now? There are certain things that if you own a business has to happen. And if you are recreating the wheel every time you send a proposal, every time there's client fulfillment, you're putting a cap on your income. It doesn't have to be complicated. I don't know about where you are, but here in the Midwest, we take pride in working really hard, right? That work ethic. The problem with having a work ethic of hard work is you make things hard in order to feel good about yourself, right? None of this has to be hard.
Yeah.
So I started out on a yellow pad. What am I doing? I'm old. I got to write things. I can't create on a computer. It starts on note cards. It moves to a yellow pad. Then it goes into the computer, right? And we just listed all the things. There was two of us. And we had a list of everything that had to happen in the business and who was doing it. And it was either her name or my name. It was not a very exciting list, but we had a list.
Yeah. You had clarity as well, didn't you?
Clarity. The other thing that it does is it frees up all your energy, because I don't want to spend time worrying about whether or not something was done. And I will worry about it if I'm not sure. But if it's documented, I'm telling you, in the beginning, it was Google Docs and Google spreadsheets, and it was a red box if it wasn't done, and it was a green box do not overcomplicate this, but start, because eventually you will make the money you need to invest in the person who will turn. Like, one of the mistakes I watch is people document it, but there's a very big difference between, okay, it's listed out, or it's now a usable tool. And at some point, someone who knows how to do it has to move it from a list of what to do into a workflow, into a project management tool. It's very cool. They work around me. The beauty of being the founder is sometimes my part of the process is to tell somebody else what's going on, but I've gotten much, much, much better at it, because if you look at how driven I am, how ADHD I am, how excitable I am, the thing I love is don't slow me down. Do not slow me down. And so now my part of the process helps me go faster, right? You just have to kind of reframe your thought about it. But there's two things coming out of corporate and into the world of entrepreneur will just kill you. Number one is that risk adversity. Corporate, we're talking billions of dollars at a time. They're very risk adverse. Entrepreneur, small business, you have to embrace risk. You have to automate it so that by the time you pass out from fear, it still happens, right? Embrace the risk. And the second thing is the horrible truth. We come out of corporate, like myself, senior vice president, awards, bonuses, yay, yay, yay. So you think you're so brilliant and this is going to be easy. And then what you realize is you were brilliant on a very narrow path that somebody else defined. And so that just kills you in the beginning. Everything else, learn. You don't see the owner of McDonald's flipping burgers. There's a reason for that. And you have to take basic business structure and simplify it for your business. Client acquisition even has to be a system. It all has to be a process. I did a live show a few months ago that I called the love letter I thought I'd never write. And it was to processes, because I never would have thought how excited I was about it. But it has to happen, or I don't get to do the fun stuff if the rest of the stuff doesn't happen.
Brilliant. Now, before I ask my final question, I'm sure there's an awful lot of people very curious about yourself now. They've got an opportunity to find out more about you on various platforms. Where are the best places to go? And when you've shared that, tell us about your book.
So the best place to go, make it real easy. You just go to conqueryourbusiness.com. If you go to conqueryourbusiness.com, you can get to everything else. So make it really easy for you. It's all there. The book is underway. It's not quite finished. It's underway. And it really is based on my podcast and these conversations that I've had, right? So it's called Ready Yet, just like the podcast. And the thing that I learned outside of the business strategy is you'll never do what it takes until you become the person it takes to do it. And so I took that concept, and my tagline for the business is be in charge, take action, get results. And I combined them. What do you have to be? Who do you have to be? What do you have to believe? How do you have to think in these three categories in order to gain the success you want? Because one of my terrible, took me way too long, don't take this long, realizations was it wasn't what I was doing, it was how I was thinking that was messing me up as a business owner. And so these are the stories from the podcast, my own personal experiences, to show people what are these traits and how can you think that'll make all the difference for you.
Sounds intriguing. Have to look forward to that being released then. Final question.
Yes.
I mentioned earlier that lots of new businesses starting, which is great. But I've also seen an alarming increase in failing businesses, particularly small business. And unfortunately, those businesses that are producing handmade products in the creative and cottage industries. Now, for those business owners that are struggling to make ends meet, and they're really struggling to deal with this incredibly rapidly changing economic and political climate, what would be your top recommendations to them to keep them going and moving forward?
The beauty about that group of people is their creativity. So, creativity, just apply it differently. This is a pattern. This is not a new pattern. So, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I worked at a corner pharmacy. Corner pharmacies don't exist anymore. Walgreens bought them. CVS bought them. There was a place called Pharmax back in the day that bought them. And there was a big, oh my God, they went out of business. That happens. There's certain industries, like as soon as something does well, someone with more money comes and eats it all. We're watching that with Airbnb, right? That was a freaking amazing tool. Loved it. And now it's getting eaten by people who are buying it corporate. Here in the US, we have that problem with rental homes. That used to be a way to make extra money. And now you have these corporations that are buying all of our houses so that they can rent them. And people can't buy houses and they can't afford rent. Like this just happens. Kind of sucks. But my boyfriend, so don't tell him. He gets mad when I talk about this. I call it endgame capitalism. I try not to be a conspiracy theorist, but we got a little bit of endgame capitalism going on here. The beauty about people who make handmade goods is their creativity. Stay in front of it so you don't get sucked under, right? What are your leading indicators that your business isn't working? Not your lagging indicators that we already, pooped the bed and now we have a problem. I almost said that differently. I'm like, ooh. Get creative. How are you distributing your product? How are you distributing, right? There's always a different way. There's always another way. It's extremely frustrating for any small business. I just went through this myself, where a way that worked for a very long time stops working. But that's business. That's business. Businesses change constantly. The marketplace changes constantly. Marketing changes constantly. This is never going to stop. It's never stopped before. If you want, this is the price we pay. This is the price we pay. This is what we have to figure out in order to get to not have to go to a job, right? It's the price we pay for admission. So stay in front of it. Make sure you're measuring all of your efforts. Make sure you have a point in mind that if it gets past this, I'm bailing and I'm going to find a new way. And again, to your example, I think the more creative you are, the better you are at doing this.
Brilliant. Well, that's a great note to finish on. Thank you so much for sharing all those stories, those experiences. There's a lot of insights there, some brilliant nuggets that you've shared there. I found that fascinating. I'd love to talk to you again sometime. And I'm sure the audience would love to hear more about you and dial into your podcast. So again, thanks very much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So there's another Real Life Buyer podcast. I do hope you enjoyed it and it has given you some ideas and inspiration for greater action and achievement. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes, and a 5-star review would be most appreciated. If you would like to discover more about me and what I do, take a look at www.thereallifebuyer.co.uk. Bye.